Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from Madison Realty Capital, Capital One Bank, Eastern Consolidated, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Sterling National Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Customers Bank, AmTrust Title, Ariel Property Advisors, Dime Community Bank. Additional funding has been provided by AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Mortgage Lending, Citizens Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Colliers International NYC, Collins Building Services, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handler Real Estate Organization, Handro Properties, Hodges Ward Elliott, Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Matone Group, Mercantile Bank, New Banks, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Stonehenge NYC, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Meringoff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Organization, Moynihan Capital Partners, and these friends.
The Bronx, Hunts Point, NYU, teaching, graduate, camps, philanthropy. More important, a mensch. I have Jerry Spitzer today, a private investor. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Michael.
So tell me about your father's side and then your mother's side. Because your father came over, you said to me, as a stowaway, right?
Yeah, he came from Romania. He left his parents. He wasn't deposed by his, to leave, but he felt that he wanted to go, and he wanted to come to America. He was all of 16 when he started the trek. It took almost a year, because he worked his way through Transylvania to the port that it left from.
So when did he arrive in America?
He arrived in America 1928. 1926.
Now, did he have any relatives?
He had a relative, one who, of course, didn't speak Romanian, and my father didn't speak English, who met him at the port but couldn't put him up anyplace, and he went to Hayas, and he lived
Hebrew free.
Hebrew Aid.
Right.
Society, which is in Manhattan on Lafayette Street.
Right, and was it where the Joseph Papp Theater is
Joseph
today?
Papp Theater. So he lived in the basement there for a short period of time until they found him a job. And he found his first job in a matzah factory, packing matzahs. Because you don't need any language skills. So that's what he did. And he did it for a few years, and then his cousin offered him a job as a painter. His cousin was already a painter, to paint. My father didn't know anything about painting, but he
was he living in the Bronx at this
living
time?
in the Bronx.
So how do you
Kelly Street.
So how do you elevate to Kelly Street?
He worked for a while. He lived in a rooming house, actually, in what we call Chelsea now, in 15th Street. And when he put a few dollars together, he got a small apartment, very small apartment, one room on Kelly Street. And actually, my mother was living in the same building. And that's how they became acquainted. Then they went into contracting business with his cousin, they started to get bigger jobs spraying. Now, we don't spray today because of health things, but in factories. And the spraying in factories, nobody wanted to do that work because you have to work at night. It's a night shift. You can't close the factory. So go out at night. But those jobs became bigger because nobody wanted to do it. And he did that for a number of years. And he did it, that was the last thing he ever worked at all through life at a higher level. So they started to do showrooms and they started to do bigger jobs, but he remained as a painting contractor. He didn't paint anymore, he didn't spray anymore, but he was a painting contractor.
So he was a painting contractor with his cousin?
With his cousin.
Okay. So tell me about Mom's side.
Mom's side came from Russia. She came with her mother, my grandmother. She came here in father came in 26, she came here in 1928.
And they ended up on Kelly Street.
They ended up on Kelly Street.
How'd they end up on Kelly?
Well, her father, my grandfather, came here a few years before, and he worked on a farm, and then he became a peddler, and then he got an apartment.
Now, what was he peddling?
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes.
Sometimes lettuce, but usually tomatoes.
Up in the Bronx?
Up in the Bronx, Westchester Avenue. He was one peddler among 100 other peddlers.
Okay, so how did the daughter of the peddler, okay, you said they met in the apartment building in Kelly Ave?
In Kelly Street.
Right.
Kelly Street.
And they got married when?
They got married in 1933, I believe. 1933.
Yeah, and we have that beautiful picture of them getting married, on the set,
Yes.
with the beautiful dress and everything.
They were poor, both of them. My mother has no skill. She worked in the garment center. They're getting threads. They used to call these people thread runners. Meant that the people on the machines would say, I need black cotton.
So you get them.
And that was an easy thing to learn because colors. And then she would be able to do that. You didn't need many language skills. A friend of her apparently got a job for her that nobody could afford to do this wedding at the time. Look, they had almost no money. My father was just doing house painting at that time. And so they made the sandwiches themselves for the people. And that's, it was in a studio, and then they had sandwich, but they wanted to do everything themselves. So it was very modest, notwithstanding the picture you saw. It was very modest, as I've been told.
But the picture was important.
Yes.
I mean, my wife has a picture of her parents, similar thing. They grew up in the Bronx. They were very, very poor also. But that picture was a very important thing to have.
Absolutely.
It was something in that day that you really wanted. It was like that New York Times article about the wedding announcement.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes,
It was a similar
yes.
thing like when we get to your bar mitzvah.
Right.
So you're born what year?
1936.
You have younger or older?
Younger brother, born in 1942.
But let's talk about the kid born in 1936. You're living where at this time? Kelly?
No, at that time when I was born, it was Union Avenue, right off Prospect Avenue.
Was this in the
south.
Hunts Point section?
Yeah, pretty much Hunts Point, but even further south.
Now, you said to me when we got together that your parents were religious and they sent you to yeshiva
They
as a
sent me to
kid.
yeshiva. And it was very hard for my father to work and watch the Sabbath, because these are night jobs and so on. So I would say that they were religious. There probably were days that my father was working on the Sabbath. In the early days, they just had to do it. But the synagogue was very important to them. There'd be night jobs probably, but during the day on Shabbat, if he's around, and he was around most of the time, they would go to synagogue, kept the kosher home. Holidays were very important. And education was, of course, important, notwithstanding that they didn't have one.
Right, but they wanted their son to
have a Jewish education.
Now, you said to me you were young, you were rebellious as a young kid,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
You didn't last too long in yeshiva, right?
No, 3 years, and I think I wore them out in the yeshiva, because first, you're a young kid, the bus comes 7 o'clock in the morning, it's still dark. You get on alone. You come home at 5:30, 6 o'clock, because in the half a day was Yiddish, Jewish studies, and the other half day was English studies. And this was not very progressive school. If you didn't learn, they rap you in the knuckles with a, and I went through that actually almost 4 years. And I had enough. It was obvious.
So when did you
Wasn't
leave
for me.
yeshiva? At the age of 10?
At the age of 10. Then I went to public school. And I was behind for a while in public school because I didn't have that kind of background.
When you were a young kid, did you work?
At that age, no, not at 10. Not at 10, but shortly after that.
Doing what?
I'd work at the tomato stand.
Oh, you with the peddler side.
Yeah. I remember 2
so-
cents for a tomato. I would travel. We lived at 173rd Street at that time, further north, and I would work on in the tomato stand.
And then we have this picture of you at your bar mitzvah, okay? And we have a publication in Yiddish about your bar mitzvah and a publication in the New York Post that Jerome Spitzer, a.k.a. Jerry Spitzer.
I have no idea how it happened. I never asked about it. People that I show it to say, boy, how did you get that? Honestly, I have no idea.
Let's talk the picture of your grandparents in the photo. Tell me about that.
That's an interesting concept. That's the parents on my father's side, my grandparents. First, they perished in Auschwitz in April 1944 with the last transport leaving from Transylvania, from this area, to Auschwitz. Now, it was known to me only after my father passed, maybe because I was working for an organization, which I'll touch later. And so I don't think, and if he was alive, I never would have told him anyways about this. It would be too heartbreaking. But anyways, this picture, I was told by somebody years back that we bury bodies, we don't bury spirits. This is somebody in the funeral business. And I thought about that. I said, you know what? If that's true, and I want to believe it's true, then I want to feel that my grandparents are watching, a part of what we're doing. So we created a picture of them, the picture's genuine, of just their faces. And in a light imprint on pictures that were taken, pictures of meaning, they were there in that corner.
Right, your bar mitzvah.
My bar mitzvah picture, they saw my bar mitzvah.
But in a different way.
They saw it.
When you were young, you got involved with Federation camps, right?
Yeah.
Parents couldn't afford it, but somebody told your parents that you can go to camp. And you spent many years in the Federation camps.
So they didn't know anything about camping, but my father, that was one of the clients, we'll call them clients now, customers, that he painted the settlement house, which was a JCC. We used to call them a settlement house on the Lower East Side. And he spoke to one of the workers there. And he didn't know anything about camp. He'd never painted the camps. It was the settlement house. And they said, you know, we have a summer camp. What's a summer camp? And they explained, and I was not 6 yet. I would be 6 in October. That's my birthday, and this was the summer before. They said, but you know, he looks like a big kid. He can go. And they sent me to camp. My parents sent me to
And how many years did you spend at the camps?
Oh, I started then. I never missed a summer. Never. Right through to the time I became the director of that camp. So it was from the age 5 to age 30. And I was always able to do it because I went into the school business, which we'll touch later, and I was off summers.
As you said, when you didn't work summers, you worked in Lakewood as a busboy, right?
It was the Livingston, I think it was the Livingston Hotel, absolutely.
You graduate high school at the age of 16, right?
That's correct.
And you were a tough kid, you said. You went to NYU downtown.
Correct.
And what happened was you really got your parents upset that you basically quit, right?
Yeah. When I say I was a tough kid, I don't know how tough I was, but I was with a crowd that made it difficult. I liked them as friends, but they weren't the best role model. And so one of my friends said, and he was going to NYU also, uptown, and it was Thanksgiving of the first year. We're only in school 2 months. And he said, you like what's going on in school? I said, nah. You like it? No. So let's not go back on Monday. I said, that's it? Yeah, we'll get a job. And of course, I had to tell my parents. They were devastated. That's an understatement. And I thought, maybe I can get someplace without schooling. Maybe I could do that. Well, of course I couldn't. I held terrible jobs that were the lowest level jobs. You'd be a messenger, or you would
The ham
teletyping.
factory.
I worked in a ham factory, which was, I wouldn't even tell anybody about that. And I'd have to open cans of ham, put them on the counter for buyers to come in to sample. And of course they would say to me afterwards, they didn't know I'm Jewish, or they didn't care. You can take that home if you want, because we're not going to finish it. I couldn't even pick it up. So it was terrible.
But then your buddy from the camp is a summer, because you want to go back to camp.
I want to go back to camp, and I think my father must have contacted him. And at that point, I would be up to maybe an athletic director. I was moving up at 17 at that point. And he said, I don't think I can have you back. And that is after being there 10 years, 11 years. I said, how, Mr. Miles? What's wrong? You're getting to the point that we have to have college people. That camp meant so much to me that I said, okay, I'll go back to college. So just before camp was to open, he contacted me. He said, what school are you going to? I didn't do anything. He said, remember what I told you? So he helped me. He told me to go down and get an application. He helped me make out the application, and he followed through with it. And I would tell you that we all face forks in the road. That was a big, big change in my life. I went back to school, but it was difficult. It wasn't the education that was difficult. It was my friends. They wouldn't call themselves difficult. I was no longer on the same page with them.
Right, and
I
you
was the
said,
only one who went to college.
Right, and you said to me, in order to stay away from the element, you used to sleep during the day after college and stay up at night, so you wouldn't be with the wrong.
Wouldn't be with them, and my
with the
mother
wrong-
wouldn't. And my mother said to me at the time, "I'm not going to lie. If your friends call you, I can't always say you're studying." So I said, "Mom, let's do this, and you won't have to lie. I'm going to sleep. I'll get up at midnight. There's no television to watch. We did have a TV in those days already, and I'll study." And I studied right through to the morning, to when I went to school. So I had a reverse schedule.
So what year did you graduate NYU?
I graduated NYU in 58.
So it's 1958. I know, because I want to make sure I get everything in. You had a couple of months at Fort Dix, I believe.
Yeah, well, what happened in 58, I got my first job. I finished school. I was in School of Education. I got a job in White Plains as a physical education teacher. And 3 months after I started the job, it was the end of November, I went into the Army Reserves for 6 months.
Right.
Came out in May, went back to the school, and continued in White Plains as a physical education teacher for 6 years.
So how did you meet the love of your life?
Love of my life. Well, we were already married at that point.
I know, but how did you
going
meet?
back? Well, a friend introduced us. We were at a New Year's Eve party, and she was invited. I was invited. Never saw her before, and he introduced me to her. She was wearing heels, so I was probably a little shorter than her, which right away didn't work in her mind, I suppose. But my charm or something, we hit it off. And
So-
never turned back
So how
after
many
that.
years did you spend in White Plains?
6.
6 years, and then what happens?
Then I went to New York City schools as a guidance counselor, because I had my master's degree in a thing called psychometry, which is a test of measurements and in guidance counseling. And I got a job in New York City Public Schools as a guidance counselor.
And then?
And then I guess people saw things in me that I didn't see in myself, truthfully. And I moved up quickly in the school system. And so there was a real drug crisis in the area that I worked in, which was the North Bronx at that time. And I came up with an idea of developing an alternative school for drug abusers. And these are kids from junior high schools. And we formed what we call Womack's Academy, which is just the first initial of every junior high school in that district. And we did it in a housing project, so there was no influence of any other kids. They weren't marked, they just were going to their normal school. And that turned out to be a blessing for the kids. And it gave me an enthusiasm to see that I was able to, with help, obviously, change things. Actually, in this huge school system, one student at a time can make a change.
And you stay in the school system till when? You're 44?
Till I'm 41. I left in 1979, February 1st, 1979. I left the school system. I had been there 20 years. When I left, I was a principal of a K-8 school, elementary, junior high school. And then what am I going to do at 41 years of age for the rest of my life? And money was always important at that time because we didn't have a lot. Had a lot more than I started with, but we didn't have a lot. And I thought I want to do something that I can make a dent in a change. I wasn't sure what the change was going to be, but I wanted to be involved in bigger issues. And so I went and through a well-known philanthropist, Edward Warburg, I got a job at the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, known as the Joint around the world. Now a 103-year-old agency, and I went there and spent a little time learning about it, and after 6 months I became the director of operations for the Joint. And for the next 7 years, I maintained that position. And in that role, traveled around the world because JDC had their headquarters in New York, but all the operations were overseas.
And that's part when you were in Ethiopia and other places.
Yeah. And I learned that, first of all, the issues are global. We have issues in America, but we're part of the globe. And when I thought back to my grandparents, at that time I knew everything about what happened to my grandparents, and visiting other countries, I said, wait a second, I'm related to all of those people. I'm entwined, I'm related, maybe truly related, who knows? Cousins may never have come to America. Maybe they perished. Maybe they moved to South America. I don't know. My family is the world family. And I don't want to be grandiose about it, but it's true. They are. And so I just don't know who they are, but they're there.
So you stayed to the Joint for how many years?
7.
And after that?
I'm still there.
I know.
After the 7, 6 months went by where I wasn't at the Joint, and then I was called by
Ralph Goldman.
Well, Ralph had just retired. I stayed there as long as Ralph worked, who was mentor number 2. But I then was called by his by the new executive who I knew, Michael Schneider. And he said, look, I have a project. We believe that the laws of restitution of properties that were seized by the Nazis in 1935, 36, 37, nationalized by the communists in 1945, that those countries who have it today are going to pass laws of restitution. There's unrest in Eastern Europe. The wall is going to come down. And we want somebody who understands Europe, understands real estate, to take on a volunteer thing in this business.
But with like 2 minutes left, I gotta move on. Because you and Linda have been really helpful with Med Council for Jewish Poverty, in senior housing developments, the property on 61st Street, a couple of other projects, and you've given back. Why have you and Linda dedicated your life to giving back?
Values that we got from our family. There wasn't money at the beginning, but there certainly was values. What was the right thing to do in this world, and that there were people much more needy than we are. And as we began to do it, we began to feel good about what we were doing, actually good. And so we did more, and then we did more, and as we could afford, we did more. And when we first started this, my father was still with us. It was 1991. We did a park in Jerusalem, and Teddy Kollek was his birthday, and he was there at the opening. And I have a picture with the whole family, and that started it. That was a good project.
So let's
continued.
So let's talk about the next generation. Tell me about your sons and your grandchildren.
I have two sons. One has started and runs a social work agency doing forensic social work.
That's the younger one.
The younger one.
And his name?
Richard. We call him Rick Spitzer. He has a big operation.
And your oldest son?
Is an ophthalmologist, Jeffrey. His wife is Arlene Katz Spitzer. Arlene is a judge, family court judge for Westchester County.
And let's talk about the two grandchildren.
Jacob is finishing Emory. He's in a senior year now. And Hannah is going into college, 18. She's going to Lafayette, and she wants to be a doctor. And she's been working for a surgeon almost every summer, volunteer work. And this summer, she passed her EMT to be an ambulance person in Westchester County.
So as I alluded at the beginning, a guy in investments, fortunately had some real estate from Pop and yourself and the mortgage business and so on. You know what? And you and your wife are the epitome of giving back. And I'm very happy that I know you personally and very happy that you've been here with me today. And thank you.
Michael, thank you for having me.